9 attacks in one day, the human cost of a war that has no pause button. They were just meters away from the shelter. An elderly couple, Yoram Moshe and Elena Moshe, were making their way to a bomb shelter in Ramat Gan when the cluster missile hit. Not far away, not across the city, meters away from safety, the Tel Aviv district. Police commander said it himself. They were just meters from the safe room when the missile struck. They did not make it. In a war that has generated satellite imagery of destroyed military bases, Press releases listing wave numbers and missile types, and sweeping geopolitical analysis about regime change and decapitation strategies. 2 names, Yoram, Elena, an elderly couple who were doing exactly what they were supposed to do, moving towards safety, and ran out of time. That is what this war looks like from the ground. And on the day Iran launched 9 separate attacks against Israel, 9, in a single day, the ground is where this story needs to be told. From midnight to morning, for waves before breakfast between midnight and 8 o'clock a.m. on a single day, Israel faced 4 separate waves of Iranian missile fire, for waves before most of the country had eaten breakfast. Medics rushed to the Kiryat suburbs near Haifa following reports of an impact. It remains unclear whether the damage was caused by a direct hit or falling debris from an interception. It does not matter much to the people picking up the pieces either way. Air raid sirens echoed across Haifa, the Galilee, and the Golan Heights as residents scrambled for cover in the pre-dawn darkness. Bomb disposal teams were deployed across multiple impact sites in the Tel Aviv district, dealing with unexploded submunitions, the secondary threat of cluster weapons that persists long after the initial strike. Shrapnel from one of the barrages struck Tel Aviv's Savador Central Railway Station, forcing authorities to temporarily suspend train services across the entire country. A resident of one of the struck buildings, shaken but composed, described the moment it happened. The siren went off. He went downstairs to the shelter with everyone else in the building. He heard a massive boom. Dust filled the air. He knew immediately it was his building that had been hit. Obviously, nobody likes having missiles shot at them. But we try to be careful, to take precautions, to go to the safe room, to go to the shelter. Hopefully we'll be okay. Hopefully we'll be okay, said by a man standing in front of his damaged apartment, trying to calm his children down after surviving a cluster missile strike on his residential building. That is the psychological reality of what 9 Iranian attacks in a single day actually means for the people living inside it. The cluster weapon, designed to spread, designed to terrify Iran, has increasingly deployed cluster warheads in its missile attacks, and this escalation deserves to be understood clearly, because cluster munitions are not ordinary weapons used in an ordinary way. A cluster warhead does not produce a single explosion at a single point. When it detonates, typically at altitude above the target area, it releases dozens or sometimes hundreds of smaller submunitions that scatter across a wide radius before individually exploding on impact. The purpose is to maximize the area of destruction from a single launched missile, to ensure that even a missile that does not hit its exact intended target still causes widespread damage across the surrounding zone. The Associated Press captured footage of exactly this happening over Israeli territory, a missile visibly releasing cluster munitions in midair, smaller explosives raining down across the ground below. Against military targets in open terrain, cluster weapons are devastating enough. Against residential neighborhoods in densely populated cities, they are indiscriminate by design. The submunitions fall across an area that can span several city blocks, landing on apartment rooftops, in streets, in gardens, on vehicles, and a significant percentage of cluster submunitions do not detonate on initial impact. They become de facto landmines, lying dormant until a civilian disturbs them hours or days later. That is why bomb disposal teams have been working continuously across multiple Tel Aviv district impact sites. Every building that was struck, every street where shrapnel fell, every vehicle that was hit, all must be systematically cleared of unexploded ordnance before residents can safely return. It is painstaking, dangerous work that unfolds long after the media cycle has moved on to the next wave of strikes. Iran has confirmed using Khorramshahr-4 and Qadr ballistic missiles in these attacks, both capable of carrying cluster warheads. The IRG has stated these strikes are direct retaliation for the killing of Ali Larijani. Footage does not lie. The cluster munitions are real. The damage is real. The 2 dead elderly civilians were real. The numbers behind the human cost: Israel's health ministry has released figures that give the cumulative human toll of this conflict in concrete terms. In a single 24-hour period, 192 people were injured, the majority sustaining light injuries, 4 in moderate condition, 1 treated for anxiety. Since the war began on February 28, 3,737 people have been hospitalized. Dozens remain in ongoing treatment. 7 are listed in serious condition. Others remain moderate to stable. Critically, health officials note that many injuries were not caused directly by missile impacts. A significant proportion occurred as civilians rushed to shelters during repeated air raid alerts, falls, collisions, crush injuries, and stairwells as thousands of people moved quickly through confined spaces in the dark. This is the hidden injury toll of sustained air campaigns. The war does not only hurt people when the missiles land, it hurts people every time the siren sounds and the city moves. And the sirens have been sounding constantly, 9 attacks in one day, for waves between midnight and 8 o'clock a.m. Sirens in Haifa, in the Galilee, in the Golan Heights, in Tel Aviv, in Ramat Gan, in Holon, in Beersheba, an entire country living under permanent alert, permanently moving, permanently calculating whether there is time to reach safety before the next impact. Iran's declared scope, every American base in the region. While Israeli civilians were rushing to shelters and bomb disposal teams were clearing unexploded cluster submunitions from Tel Aviv streets, the IRG was making a declaration that, if accurate, represents the broadest geographic scope of any single operational announcement in this conflict. Iran's Revolutionary Guard claimed it had targeted every U.S. military base across the region, stating this was the third time it had conducted such a comprehensive sweep. The bases specifically named in the IRG statement cover the entire American military footprint across the Middle East. Ali al-Salem Air Base in Kuwait, Victory. Base in Iraq, Al-Kharj Air Base in Saudi Arabia, Al-Udeid Air Base in the Way, Al-Dafra Air Base in the Way, Al-Azraq Air Base in Jordan, the 5th Fleet Naval Base in Bahrain, and the Arifjan Base in Kuwait. The IRG also stated that waves of drones struck targets across Acre, Haifa, Tel Aviv, and Beersheba, and claimed that Israeli warning systems failed during the assault, that sirens were silent and defenses were caught off guard as drones and missiles closed in. Israel has disputed this characterization, but the breadth of the Iranian operational claim every American base in the region simultaneously, for the third time, reflects the scale of ambition behind Iran's military campaign. This is not targeted retaliation against specific installations. This is a declared strategy of making American military presence in the Middle East untenable. The IRG statement made the objective explicit. These strikes will continue until the complete evacuation and destruction of American terrorist bases. It accompanied this with a warning to regional Muslim populations to stay away from American military installations, a chilling advisory that effectively treats every American base in every neighboring country as a future target. The cumulative weight, 700 missiles, 3,600 drones. Iran has now claimed to have launched approximately 700 missiles and 3,600 drones at U.S. and Israeli military assets since the war began on February 28th. Sit with those numbers for a moment. 700 ballistic missiles, 3,600 drones in less than 3 weeks. The weapons deployed in this latest wave alone included multi-warhead Qadr missiles, Kaber Shaker missiles, Emed missiles, and Hajj Qasem missiles, a mix of medium and long-range ballistic systems, some carrying conventional warheads, some carrying cluster payloads, all designed to overwhelm defensive systems through volume, variety, and relentlessness. The financial arithmetic of defending against this is punishing and increasingly unsustainable. Every interceptor fired costs more than the drone or missile it destroys. Every day that passes depletes stockpiles that take months to replenish, and Iran's production lines are running at full capacity, assessed at up to 10,000 drones per month, ensuring that the supply of incoming threats will not run short before the supply of interceptors does. This is the mathematics of attrition, and Iran is playing it deliberately, systematically, and with a patience that reflects careful strategic planning rather than reactive fury. Holon, a city block on fire in the city of Holon, south of Tel Aviv, the night erupted into chaos. Massive fires tore through a residential area after missile shrapnel struck a vehicle and ignited it within seconds. Footage released by Magen David Adom, Israel's emergency medical service, showed flames consuming the wreckage as emergency crews raced to contain the blaze before it spread to surrounding buildings. The images are not abstractions. They are a residential street. They are apartment buildings. They are the kind of neighborhood that exists in every city in the world, and on this night, it was on fire because shrapnel from an Iranian ballistic missile had found it. No deaths reported in that specific incident, but the footage captures something that statistics cannot: the visceral, terrifying reality of what it means to be a civilian city in the flight path of a ballistic missile campaign, a conflict that civilians did not choose. Zoom out from the individual incidents: Yoram and Elena Moshe in Ramat Gan, the shaken resident standing in front of his damaged apartment, the fires in Holon, the closed railway station, the bomb disposal teams working through residential streets, and a picture emerges that the military briefings and strategic analyses do not fully capture. This is a war being fought primarily in the air, with weapons designed to destroy infrastructure and degrade military capability, but landing with increasing frequency on the people who live beneath the flight paths. The 37 people hospitalized since February 28th did not make the decisions that started this conflict. The elderly couple who were meters from safety did not sit in the war councils that ordered the strikes and counterstrikes. The resident whose apartment was damaged by cluster submunitions did not choose to become a participant in a geopolitical confrontation between nation-states. They are civilians. They are the people for whom bomb shelters were built and safe rooms were required by law in every new apartment. They are the people who have spent weeks running, sheltering, waiting for the all-clear, and running again. Israel's relatively low civilian death toll, given the scale of the missile campaign, reflects genuine achievements in civil defense, the shelter infrastructure, the public compliance with protocols, the speed of emergency response. But every number in those statistics is a person, and the number is growing. 9 attacks in one day, 192 injured in 24 hours. 3,737 hospitalized since the war began. 2 names, Yoram, Elena. The war behind the numbers, the IRG releases press statements. Netanyahu gives televised addresses. Trump posts on Truth Social. Analysts discuss decapitation strategies and regime change and the arithmetic of drone interception. And in Ramat Gan, an elderly couple runs toward a shelter and doesn't make it. That gap between the strategic language in which this war is discussed and the human reality in which it is lived is the gap that 9 attacks in a single day makes impossible to ignore. The missiles are not abstractions. The cluster submunitions raining down over Tel Aviv are not strategic concepts. The fires in Holon are not talking points. They are a war in a city against people. And it is not over. Not on the day of the 9th attack. Not the day after. Not the day after that. The IRG has said the strikes will continue until American bases are evacuated and destroyed. Netanyahu has said there are many more surprises coming. Iran has 700 missiles and 3,600 drones already launched, and the production lines are still running. Yoram and Elena Moshe were meters from safety. The next couple who runs toward a shelter may not be so close.